I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby here with Jon Bernthal, one of the stars of We Own This City. And I actually want to just start with the accent. So this takes place in Baltimore. You're playing a corrupt cop, Wayne Jenkins, who has a very particular accent. Can you speak about just the specifications of that accent and how you sort of mastered the voice?
Sure, man. Thank you, and thanks for having me. Yeah, look, he is from Baltimore. Specifically, he's from Middle River, and look, I'm from the D.C. area. One of the first things that I got to tell you just about that region. It's and anybody who's from there knows it's unbelievably diverse, and it's just this kind of conglomeration of different kinds of folks. DC has nothing to do with Baltimore, like nothing. Like culturally, they sort of couldn't be more different. Um, but also Middle River to Baltimore, it's much more country. It's very very specific, and I think Wayne, you you specifically, he just has a very kind of like high piercing voice, and he's also very much a code switcher. He talks differently depending on who he's talking with. But I had a great dialect coach, Jerome Butler, and look, I think more than anything else, man, like the David Simon and George Pelecanos, they work with this, real genuine journalistic integrity. I think the idea here was to tell the truth and to try to get it right. And oftentimes you're on a project and you're trying to make a scene as entertaining as possible, or to raise the stakes as much as possible, make it funny as possible, or romantic as possible. What I loved about this is we're just trying to tell it honestly. We're just trying to tell the truth. And so many of the real folks that this story is about were actually on set and participating in the scenes that we were shooting. Almost to a scene, we would shoot a scene in the location where it actually went down in real life. And I think, having that be the North Star, telling the truth, what an amazing opportunity. And so for me, trying to get Wayne's voice right was enormously important.
Right. And then in terms of sort of the nonverbal aspects, I found very interesting too, because he has this kind of bravado, kind of like a cock of the walk attitude. And I think you're able to tell a lot about him just by sort of the way he carries himself, even just the way you walk or the way that, he interacts with the police gear. Just curious what you sort of developed there whenever he's not speaking that you felt like was you were able to express about his character.
I think the challenge is, when you're playing someone who, you can find out so much about a character by what other people say about him. And since this is a real life human being, I got to spend so much time with folks he grew up with family members, talking to him directly, uh, countless ride-alongs and time with the Baltimore Police Department, with the SWAT team, with guys from the Gun Trace Task Force, sort of being with them, talking about Wayne, the way he carried himself. And to a person, people said when he walked in a room, everybody took notice. He had this unbelievable amount of charisma and bravado. Some people would call it arrogance. And look, there's countless hours of body cam footage. Um, One of the reasons why this was a project I so wanted to be a part of, and I would have walked through walls to do that, was because I knew that the access that David and George have in the city of Baltimore, and to be able to go to the Baltimore Police Department and tell this story that is one of the darkest chapters of their history, and to be able to say, hey, look, guys, will you open up to me? Can I become a part of your world? Will you share with me? That's a tough ask, but I knew, because of the resonance of The Wire in that city, that I might have a shot, and I really did. And I was staggered by the openness of the folks in the Baltimore Police Department, especially folks who knew Wayne well, whose careers have completely been upended because of their proximity to him. I believe that the reason why these folks really opened up to me and kind of took me in the way that they did was because The Wire is so unbelievably important, and because of those things I said before, because The Wire really attempted to tell the truth and to really examine how the system affects the individual. And there's people I know and love and respect in the Baltimore Police Department who watch The Wire every year just to remind them to keep it personal. I mean, keep it business and never make it personal.
Yeah. Well, do you think the part of that openness maybe was just the fact that they had David Simon and George Pelecanos, who they knew, and they knew that they could be trusted with this very dark period in this city's history.
100% what I'm saying. And you
Mhm.
go in with that. Hey, we're doing this. Look, those are guys that have staked their entire careers and they've stayed in that area, in the DC, Baltimore, region. They live there. It means a lot. It's the
Yeah.
entire crew comes from the Wire. What an honor. What a sacred honor for me to be welcomed into that, the family of that crew. So many of the folks that were in the Wire as actors were a part of this. I can say, with absolute certainty and with my head held high, that we made this show, with the city of Baltimore, for the city of Baltimore, by the city of Baltimore. And I think when you're telling a story that's this sensitive, that this vital, folks have lost their lives, have lost their freedom at the hands of police corruptions. There's police officers who again, whose lives have been completely upended because of the actions of these few. And so to go in and tell that story, that's sacred, and you have to do it with respect and reverence. And I can absolutely say with certainty that that's the way that these folks work. And I was honored to be a part of that. I
Hmm.
really feel we did that right.
Yeah. I think actually one of the more telling moments with Jenkins is in the finale, when he says something along the lines of how it's kind of ridiculous that he's being seen as a dirty cop, and another character's like, well, you kind of are, and he kind of like bristles at that, and he's able to sort of make this separation in his mind, like, I'm not one of the bad apples, I may have done some shady things, but I'm not a bad person. Can you speak to that kind of thought process with him and how
Absolutely.
he's kind of justifying things in his mind?
Sure. Listen, it's again, it's taking one of the most triggering, one of the most divisive, and one of the most. I mean, we're at the apex of this sort of just polarized issue in this country, which is race and policing. And I think, when you talk about a guy, and look, the answer is we have to dive into the nuance of it. We have to explore the wound. We got to dig into it. I think the thing about Wayne is it was his success. It was his ability to be a community minded police officer, his ability to infiltrate the community, his ability to get information out of the community that made him so good at what he did, but that also provided this unbelievable fertile field for just absolute duplicitousness, corruption, and brutality that he committed upon the folks of Baltimore. But I'll tell you, from hanging out with Wayne or talking to Wayne, in a 15-minute phone call, Wayne will absolute absolutely claim his innocence. Then he will talk about his guilt, and then he will sort of try to get you to do something for him all at the same time. I mean, it's that dichotomy. It's the crux of that conflict that I think really kind of drives him through, and what really eventually ultimately made him spiral completely out of control. But it's these two things that go hand in hand. It's being this golden boy, this person, because of the culture of policing and because of the systemic you know reaction to the police slowdown after Freddie Gray. This kind of points on the board: how many arrests, how many guns can you get? Because he was so successful there, it also gave him sort of this golden ticket, this key to behave however he wanted. And I think those things go hand in hand for him.
Mm. Yeah. And I also think when you're playing a character like this who's doing things that maybe you wouldn't normally do, but you're still having to play it as if every decision that is being made is rational in this person's head. I mean, I know that's basically what acting is, but how much are you personally, as Jon, judging a character's choices, especially one who really did these things in real life? Like, is there a separation that you're able to make?
It's a really good question. The judging, I really try not to do. The judging, I mean, I think the most powerful thing that we can do as artists is hold a mirror up, try to tell the truth, hold a mirror up to society, and let society ask questions. I think with playing Wayne, I think instead of judging, I think you need to find some bit of connection, some bit of empathy with a character, no matter how sort of there's this immediate triggering of being sort of disgusted with some action. Look, to a person, everybody I talked to about Wayne, folks that loved him, folks that hated him, folks that suffered at the hand of him, to a person, people who really know Wayne talked about how committed a dad he was. David Simon said from the beginning, we can't just play this guy as a monster, and that's hard because a lot of folks look at him that way. And if you read those scripts, that's really how he came across. And what what an example of just sort of the depths of artistry that David Simon has. He labeled right from the jump what the problem was with the script that he and George wrote. It was how do you make this guy not a monster? And I think it was this very fact, the fact that he was this committed dad, the fact that he did love his kids more than anything in the world. That's something that I can identify with and empathize with and connect to, 100%. But then he engages in this behavior that ultimately is going to keep him from his kids. And I think the crux of that conflict is what drives him and what caused him to spiral. So I think it's about connectivity and empathy, and you gotta, as best you can, try not to judge. I don't think judgment gets you anywhere.
Yeah. And actually, maybe speaking to that a little bit, you have your podcast, Real Ones, where you talk to people on the front lines, people who are out there and making a difference in the world, and you're sort of engaging in what's actually going on in certain communities. So I'm wondering just how much insight you had into what was happening in police departments and in communities like in Baltimore before you took on this role, and then how much you felt like you learned just from the experience of being sort of immersed in this world now. Did that sort of change any perception for you?
Yeah, always. I mean, I think my eyes and my heart are wide open, and I'm so grateful that folks, welcome me into their world and open up to me. I find that sacred. It's a huge honor, and I'm endlessly grateful for it. The one thing I know is I've just been so disappointed at the state of discourse in this country right now. I've been so disgusted by the flag waving and the agenda driven conversations that I feel have really monopolized, just taken over the way that we talk about these incredibly important issues. And what I found is that folks that really walk the walk, not just talk about it, not celebrities, not pundits, not so-called experts, but if you want to talk about policing, talk to police. If you want to talk about neighborhoods that there's not a lot of opportunity, that crime has taken over, let's talk to the folks from those neighborhoods. And what I found is that when you really talk to people that are really in those valleys, that really have boots on the ground, they can finish each other's sentences. They're so much more alike than they are different. Even if they're on supposedly opposing sides of things, they've actually rubbed elbows. They've developed empathy for the quote unquote other side because they've actually had experience with them. And I think as we get more isolated and more polarized, I think we have less time with folks that are, again, on the supposed other side. It's just keeping us further apart. And again, I got to know members of the Baltimore Police Department. I got to become extremely close with folks that are from that community, that love that community, that have love and respect from that community. I got to know people on the streets of Baltimore that have engaged in crime, that are playing the hands that they're dealt, folks that have been in and out of the prison system, that want for their kids the same thing that you and I want, and are looking for opportunity in a world that's devoid of it, and who want policing, that want more police in their communities. And I think so oftentimes these conversations are being led by folks who just have no experience in it. And I think that's a big problem. And for me, I get to learn so much from these people. So I'm just really grateful that, these folks will actually come on, my podcast and talk about these things. And I hope folks learn from them as much as I have. Yeah, my podcast is very much not about me. It's about the wonderful people that I get to bring on.
Yeah, and giving them that platform that you might have, right? Well, I mean, just having gone through this experience of playing Wayne Jenkins, I mean, it feels a very intense character, which I know you've done a few intense characters in the past, but was it difficult to let go of this one?
Look, I do think, I don't want to, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I'm going to try to not judge my own answer. I don't really want it to be easy to let go. I want to leave something on the field. I'm so grateful to get to do this. This work is so important to me, and to be a part of this project specifically, such an honor. I have so much gratitude, and I didn't want it to be easy. The one thing I will tell you is, I got to collect an unbelievable group of friends on this project, folks, from the Baltimore-based crew that came from The Wire, that welcomed me into their family. The men and women of the Baltimore Police Department, I made some friends for life. We got to have unbelievable experiences, 3 months of ride-alongs every day, drug and gun raids with the SWAT team, folks that are policing for the right reasons, that took an oath of being a peacekeeper and really have so much love for the community in which they police. So many folks from the city of Baltimore just opened up to me and brought me into those streets. There's so much. It's such a brutal and beautiful city, and it's right in the center of the middle of my heart. And I got to walk away with just feeling so rich by these new relationships. And I tell my kids all the time that this whole thing is about the people you get to meet along the way. I'm so, that's the win for me. That's the win for me. It's the folks that I get to walk away with in my life. Fortunately or unfortunately for me, I'm a collector. I don't let go. We're still all in touch. We're still all seeing each other all the time. I'm enormously happy about that. I'm enormously grateful for that. It made my life better, my family's life better, and whether it's hard or not to let go, so much was filled by these relationships, and I'm super grateful for it.
Mm. Well, one of those folks, I guess, that you collected is Reynaldo Marcus Green, who did all 6 episodes of this show. You worked with him last year on King Richard. What is that working relationship like, just out of curiosity, now having done multiple projects with him?
Look, I cannot say enough good about Ray Green. When they first started talking to me about this, and they said I would do it, I went right to Ray and begged him to come do this with me. My working relationship with Ray is it's the best I've ever had with a director. I trust him with every fiber of my body. He's got impeccable taste. He absolutely pulverizes hierarchy on set, which is the way that all wonderful directors do. All ideas are open. He creates a family on set. I think his ability to cast is unlike anything I've ever seen before. I trust him. We're both athletes. We both play college baseball. We've got this shorthand of working where we talk to each other like we're on a playing field. But I think above all else, I love him and I love his family and I believe in him as a human being. He also realized how sacred this story is, how sensitive it was. He always leads with respect. I just, to be able to go into this, with my friend, with my brother, who I trusted. Look, Wayne, this character, it was a big swing, the way he talked, the way he walked, the improv, it was, and not always met with, open arms on set, but I had him right there in my corner, pushing me forward, and I would follow Ray everywhere. I'm going to be working with him the rest of my career, and I think when you mentioned King Richard as well, honestly, I don't think Ray got the credit he deserved on that film. Ray really took that to the next level, and I think he's one of a kind.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to more collaborations with the two of you, hopefully in the future.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're out of time though, but for those of you watching, subscribe for more interviews and go to goldderby.com to make your Emmy predictions. Thank you so much, Jon. Great chatting with you.
I really appreciate the time, Kevin.